assistance during the session today. So as Carla indicated, the title of my session is Best Practices for Corrections Test Administrators and Educators. My name is Mellissa Hulstrand. I am the GED State Relationship Manager from Minnesota, and extremely happy to be with you here this afternoon. I do have many slides to get through, so I am going to get through my slides first and then take questions. Please note there is a PDF version of these slides already available to you. And at the end, you will see my contact information. So if you don't have it and you have any questions that I'm not able to answer because we run out of time, or just in the future you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. So let's get started. These are the different topics that I'm going to be covering. The first part of this session is targeted towards test administrators, covering best practices for before test day, on test day, how to manage testing issues. I'll speak specifically about Service Direct, which is a system that only test administrators and chief examiners have access to. And then I'm going to provide you with some updates, briefly touch on some products and resources. And there is a Did You Know section, and I will point out some excellent resources on our website. Those last four topics that I'm going to cover are mainly geared towards educators, but there is definitely some helpful information in there for test administrators as well. So let's get started. Before test day, it's really important that whoever it is that is creating accounts on testers' behalf, on the tester's behalf, that they ensure that the name, the date of birth, the social security number that they enter is correct. And we suggest that you carefully enter that information, that you double check and triple check to make sure that the information that you've entered is accurate. We want to avoid testers receiving credentials with incorrect information on it. It's also important to make sure that you've scheduled the correct tester. If you are one of the people who is scheduling tests for testers, that can only be done in Registration Manager, which is a system that will show you testers not just within your facility, but also throughout the United States. So there is a chance that there are other testers with the same name, same first and last name as some of your testers. And we suggest that you have a seating plan just to make sure that the tester is seated at the correct computer to test. Now let's move on to on-test day. Here are some pre-test best practices. We suggest that you run the RMA for tester roll call, that you ensure that the testing room is clear. And by that, we mean make sure that there's no food or drinks or pens or pencils. If there are any posters in the room, take a look to make sure that there's nothing written on the poster or behind it. Check underneath the chairs, behind the computers, on the side of the computers, to make sure that there aren't any notes left behind. And all GED testers should be receiving dry erase boards. Please make sure that those are cleared, that they don't have any notes from previous testing sessions. And please make sure that the candidate agreements are ready, that you have a stack of those available, and that you stagger the placement of the testers. Here's a daily startup checklist that we think would be good practice for you to follow if you're not doing so already. Number one, you should be checking your voicemail and email for any instructions or information from Pearson VUE that might affect the day's schedule. This is for test administrators and chief examiners. Even on days that you don't have a test session scheduled, it's always great practice to take a look at that voicemail and email. And I know that you get inundated with emails from Pearson VUE, but please take a look each morning to see if there's any that pertain to the tests that you deliver, like the GED tests. Also access the VSS website on a regular basis. Check that the RMA is running properly. Run the RMA manually if necessary. And test admins and chief examiners, every single day that they go into work, should be taking a look at Service Direct to see if there's any updates on cases that you or one of your colleagues created, but also check and see if there's any cases that have been created by Pearson VUE that have been assigned to your test center. because just like how you have the ability to create cases, Pearson VUE has that ability as well to create them and assign them to your test center. Please make sure that you familiarize yourself with the day's activities, print the schedule if you choose, and while reviewing the day's testing schedule, be sure that any accommodations that are required have been prepared. So for example, if there's a tester who has been approved to test with a special piece of equipment, do you know if that piece of equipment has arrived? Do you know where it is? Is it in the building that you're in? Is it in a different building? Is it still in the packaging or the box that it was delivered in, shipped in? Does it need to be assembled? Is it in the test center office area? Those are all things that you should consider to ensure that testing for that tester runs smoothly. When it comes to check-in, we think that best practice, we suggest that what you do is ask the tester for their first and last name, as well as their date of birth, and check that against what's listed in Registration Manager. Instead of you stating what the first and last name is and their date of birth and asking them, is that correct? Ask them to state it. And after you do that, take a look at the ID, check and make sure that the first and last name and the date of birth listed on that ID is what is listed in Registration Manager. Obviously, you should be checking for unauthorized items. You should have some sort of seating plan available just to make sure that the correct tester is seated at the correct computer. And keep in mind that for every 15 testers, an additional test administrator is needed, and that is per Pearson VUE guidelines. Here are some candidate search best practices. We suggest that you ask the tester to turn all of their pockets completely out so that they can show that waist in that belt area if that's not visible. If their sleeves are down, ask them to roll them up. And if their sleeves are up, ask them to roll them down. Do they have a hood on? It's highly unlikely in a correctional setting, but if they do, ask them to lift the hood just so you can make sure that there isn't anything there. And if their hair is covering their ears, just ask them to pull their hair back so you can check and see if there's any devices in their ears. Also, do they have tattoos on their hand and on their arm? If so, take a quick look to see if there's any notes written within those tattoos. We have had correctional programs and facilities report that they found notes written within students' tattoos. And ask the tester to pat him or herself down to show that there's nothing hidden. Obviously, if your program or facility has additional search requirements, you should follow that protocol. Let's move on to physical test monitoring. All test administrators know that they should be closely monitoring testing. They should be watching for possible cheating. We suggest that you circulate the room every 10 to 20 minutes during testing events instead of standing or sitting in the same spot throughout the entire testing session. And if you do catch somebody cheating, please remember that it's important to put their test in unscheduled break mode and let the time run out. Also, it's important to get the tester out of the room as soon as possible. Hopefully you have another colleague in there that can assist you with that. But again, one key thing to remember is to put the test in unscheduled break mode, let the time run out, and as soon as possible, create a case in Service Direct. Because remember, that's the way, that's the method that you have to document the case. That's your way of letting GED and Pearson VUE know that something has occurred. And it's really important that you select the correct topic when you're creating a case to ensure that it gets to the correct team to avoid delays. And when it comes to cheating, the topic that you should select is candidate error. Now let's move on to managing testing issues. So basically in correctional settings, there are two types of issues. There's misconduct that includes cheating, spyglasses, disruptive testers, and there are prison issues, which includes lockdown and technical issues. For candidate misconduct, if you suspect it, you should try to get the tester out of the room as soon as possible. And like I just indicated in the last one or two slides, put the test in unscheduled break mode. Let the test time out. Do not stop the test. You should inform the tester that you will be reporting this incident, and you should create that case as soon as possible. Now, the one thing that we've noticed in cases that are being created is that there's not enough detail in those cases. So on the right-hand side of the slide, I've provided some guidelines for you to keep in mind when creating a case. You should try to provide a detailed description of the tester behavior, give us an idea as to the location or situation when confronting the tester. Did this happen during check-in? Did this happen when they were seated? Did the test already start? The more information you can give us, the better. And if any of your colleagues witnessed the incident, then you should indicate that, give us their first and last name and their job title, and give us a sense of how the tester reacted once you confronted them. I mentioned spyglasses. Just want to quickly cover with you what to do if any tester is wearing glasses. I'll give you an idea what spyglasses look like and how to handle a situation if you come across somebody that is wearing them. So first of all, it's important to understand, and this is a Pearson VUE rule, for every single tester that comes in to test wearing glasses, you are supposed to inform the tester that you must inspect those glasses. And so what you want to ask them to do is to remove those glasses, ask them to place them with the bridge down and the arms unfolded on a hard surface. And then you should be looking for spyglass features, which include USB ports, power on-off buttons, pinholes, that sort of thing. If you look at the picture in the top left, there's actually a pinhole there. And pretty much all spyglasses have at least 2 pinholes, sometimes 3, usually 1 on each corner of the glasses. Then there's also LED indicators, on, off, record buttons, reset buttons. Usually there's comfort nose pads as well. And it's really important to take a look at the glasses up close, because spyglasses from far look like a regular pair of glasses. What should you do if spyglasses are identified? Well, first of all, you should try to surrender. Ask the tester to surrender those glasses, try to confiscate them. But obviously, when attempting to do so, keep your safety in mind, use your best judgment for your safety and the safety of others. You should take photos and video of the spyglasses. Use your cell phone, use a colleague's cell phone. To do that, create a case in Service Direct immediately. It's really important that we get notified of this ASAP. And if you have any other questions about what to do when encountering somebody with a pair of spyglasses, you should call our test center support line at the number you see listed on the bottom left of your screen. Again, when you create the case, keep in mind that the more detail you're able to provide, the better it is for Pearson VUE and GED Testing Service. So I've included those guidelines that I had on one of the slides just a short while ago. Give us an idea as to how the tester reacted when you confronted them. In the case of spyglasses, ask them a question: where did they get them for? Where did they get them from? See what they said, indicate that in the report. And now I've mentioned Service Direct several times already. I think it's a good point in the presentation for me to stop and speak specifically about Service Direct. For the educators that are on the line, this is something that only test administrators and chief examiners have access to. It serves a variety of different functions, purposes, but the primary function of Service Direct is that it gives test centers, test administrators, chief examiners the ability to report incidences, misconduct to Pearson VUE and GED Testing Service. So instead of calling, instead of sending an email, this is the system that we want you to use. So it would be documented there, and it gives Pearson VUE the ability to look into the case, provide some updates on the investigation, and gives the test center the ability to provide more information if Pearson VUE reaches out and asks for it. You also have the ability to report group cancellations in this system. You can order more erasable note boards if you need them. And like I indicated already, you're able to provide and receive updates on cases. There are some excellent resources available on Service Direct. I'm not sure if everybody on the call knows this. And there are 2 types. There are videos. The titles of those videos are listed on the left-hand side of the screen. And there are quick reference cards, which are listed on the right-hand side of the screen. To access the resources, you can access them at any time. All you need to do is go into VSS, click on Downloads, and then click on Service Direct. If you had any questions about the Service Direct resources, you can contact our Test Center support line at the number you see listed at the bottom of the screen. Now, the number one reason that Service Direct is used is to create cases. So if you've only created a few cases, if you haven't created any yet, I highly encourage you to take a look at the video titled Creating Cases and the quick reference card titled Creating Cases. And know that the videos are on average 10 minutes in length, so none of them would take long for you to view. It won't take up much of your time. And even those test administrators and chief examiners that have used Service Direct quite a bit already, I encourage you to take a look at the tutorials and the quick reference cards to make sure that you are performing these different functions the way that Pearson VUE would like you to. Here's an example of what a quick reference card looks like. So if you haven't seen them, they're all in the same format. They print really well on 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. So I would encourage you to print all 15 of them and keep them in your test center office area for you and your colleagues. The title is listed at the top with a brief description, and then you will see that there are clear and concise steps. So they're easy to follow. Sometimes there's screenshots and sometimes there's arrows pointing to what it is that you need to click on. And this is the first page of the Create Case quick reference card if you haven't seen it. So again, very easy to follow. I encourage you to take a look at the videos and the quick reference cards if you have not already done so. Now, I did mention that you have the ability to order additional erasable note boards if you'd like by creating a case. Just keep in mind that when you create your case, it's important to select the topic Test Center Request and then Test Center Fulfillment. And if you need more pens for these erasable note boards, it's important to understand that Pearson VUE actually doesn't provide additional pens, but you can purchase them from stores like Staples, Office Depot, Office Max, Target, Walmart. But when you do, you should keep in mind that it should be the ones with the super fine tip, the ones that are black and meant for these erasable note boards. Also, another thing that you can do in Service Direct is reach out to us and suggest changes to documentation that needs clarification, or maybe there's a process in VSS that doesn't exist that you think would be helpful to other test administrators, or you notice an error. Create a case, select these two topics, Test Center Request and Test Center Documentation Inquiry, and just note the error or the discrepancy or the process you feel that should be listed there. And there's a team that will review those suggestions and make the necessary changes. So we've covered the first 4 topics on the agenda. I'm now going to move on to the last 4 topics. And as I indicated at the beginning of this session, most of the information that I'm going to be providing from this point on to the end is mostly beneficial to educators, but there's definitely some helpful information for test administrators as well. So updates, for those of you that have access to GED Manager, I know there's some educators as well as some test administrators that have access to our system. We have actually started adding a search button to different parts of GED Manager. And so where we've added those search buttons, that means anytime you enter information in any one of the search fields, that you actually need to click on the search button to see the results, the accounts that match with what you've entered. Whereas prior to this update, as soon as you started entering any information in any of the search fields, if there was a match, the system would show you that. And by end of year, we will be adding this search button to all parts of GED Manager. Also, our GED Ready offline product that's been available for quite a few years now. We updated the forms, so there are new forms that are available. This is a product that is specifically available for corrections. Briefly, the way that it works is that if a purchase is made, once a purchase is made, a file is downloaded from GED Testing Service, and then the tests are placed on a jump key memory stick, and then somebody at your facility would walk it over to the non-internet testing computers and then assign a certain amount of tests to each of the computers that you want students to take this type of test on. If you are interested in learning more about GED Ready Offline or receiving a demo on it, please reach out to me after the presentation when you have some time. I'd be happy to provide you with that demo and give you additional information. The other thing that I wanted to cover with you are the score report changes. So about 2 years ago, we met with several students and teachers, educators across the United States, and asked them for feedback on our score report. What did they like? What did they not like? What sorts of suggestions did they have? And here's some of the feedback that we received. We were told that it's hard to navigate through the list to find their study material. It's not clear which study materials are books or which ones are digital. Students didn't realize that the skills that are listed were actually specific to them based on their test performance. And students wanted more feedback on the essay. So, like I said, we started this project about 2 years ago where we met with students, we met with educators, we brainstormed solutions, we developed prototypes, we showed those prototypes to the students and the educators, developed new features based on their feedback and tested some of those features. And we've made some updates so that all testers can see these updates, but our plan is to spend the next year and a half updating the score report even more. But let's take a look at some of the changes that have been made to the score report. You probably realized most of these already. So when you click on a student's score report, now in the search bar, you could just enter the material that you have on hand that the student's using, and it will automatically show you that material. Or you could scroll down and the first set of prep materials that you see will be the online study materials. You know that they're online because they're shown inside a computer screen here. And then below that, we have our books listed. You know that they're books because they're shown by a graphic of their cover. Also, the skills show up, the specific skills that the student needs to work on show up like they did before, but there's a checklist because it was suggested to us by students and educators actually that it would be helpful if there is a way for students and or educators to put a check mark besides the skills that the student had already worked on. And we now show you the student's essay in this top part over here. If you want to take a look, or the student wants to take a look, what an example of a perfect score, they can do that by clicking this tile over here on the right. If you want to take a look at the answer guidelines, that will be available as well. And below that, there are video lessons specifically on how to write a great written response. So 8 different videos that can be viewed at any time. One, for example, is how to write a great introduction. Another, how to write a great conclusion, how to choose a side, how to defend your side. And at the bottom, there's even a button on that you could click on to print the copy of that score report. Another suggestion that we received from educators is that they wanted a note section on the score report on that printable version. So that's been added. This is what it looks like. And like I said, there's more updates that are coming in the next year and a half. You'll see more updates to the score report. Now let's move on to products and resources. Just briefly want to highlight 2 products here. The first is GED Flash. And if you think back to the flashcards that we used in elementary school, this is very similar to that, but in electronic format. So there's more than 6,000 practice test questions across the 4 subject areas. We worked with Aztec to develop this product. It's been available for a while now. It is available for organizations so that if a teacher wanted to keep an eye on how many questions their students have attempted in the different subjects, how well they're doing on those questions, how much time they're spending on this, they're able to access that data. And what's really great for the students is that when they answer a question, they get instant feedback with step-by-step explanations which provide additional teaching opportunities. So even if they get a question correct, as you see in this slide here, we're not just telling them, oh, you got yes, the answer is correct. We're giving them an explanation as to why it's correct. And again, there's over 6,000 questions available in the 4 subjects. And the questions are aligned to cover the exact skills from the test. Since we introduced this product, we've been keeping a close eye on it, taking a look at the analytics, and our data shows that over half of regular GED Flash users have moved up an entire score level on the GED Ready practice test, and some have moved up 2 score levels. The other product that I briefly wanted to mention to you is GED Play. It is an on-demand video learning product. It came about because there were correction programs across the United States that reached out to us and expressed a need for engaging distance learning tools for high quality content to supplement existing instruction. They wanted the ability to track student time on task, and they wanted content that could also be served offline, also to students in restricted areas. So we worked with Kaplan, we worked with Aztec, and the result is GED Play, which offers hours of video instruction covering all 4 GED test subjects. The lessons are short, easy to digest, they're not long by any means, so that students don't feel overwhelmed, and there are targeted lessons where the concepts align directly with the skills being evaluated on the GED test. And the lessons are delivered by Kaplan instructors. If you're interested in learning more about Flash or Play, or you'd like to see a demo of it, by all means, just reach out to me and I could provide you with more information and set you up with a demonstration. We do have a 10% off promotion that's going on right now. Now I'd like to move on to our Did You Know section. And this sheet that I'm showing you here, who to contact, the who to contact sheet is specifically for test administrators. This is not for educators, but an excellent resource for test administrators and chief examiners who can access this in VSS or on the GED website. And the reason it's great is because it gives you an excellent idea as to which team to reach out to when you run into different problems or issues. For example, it's letting you know that if you have questions with registration manager, maybe you need a little bit more assistance with that, non-technical questions regarding checking candidates in, that you should call the number at the top of your screen and select option 1. That will get you through to the customer service team. If you have questions about test administrator certification or recertification, questions about site manager or admissions manager, or maybe your test center needs to temporarily close due to renovations or temporarily be moved to a different building, or maybe you can't find a document in VSS that you know that you've located before, then you should call the number at the top of your screen and select option 2. If you have questions about Service Direct, you are locked out or need assistance resetting passwords for any of the Pearson VUE systems, you need assistance launching or delivering GED practice tests or the regular GED tests, run into issues with running the Express RMA, you need help obtaining a challenge key or a new security certificate, then that means you need to contact our tech support team. So you would need to call the number at the top of this screen, not the number that was on the previous slide. This number is going to get you through to the tech support team, which can assist you with all items that are listed here. I suggest to test administrators and chief examiners that you save this as a bookmark, but that you also print copies of this and have it in your test center office area for yourself and your fellow test administrators. The other update that I have for you that I think is beneficial to both educators and test administrators is letting you know that we've updated our FAQ section. So we've always had an FAQ section on the GED website, but we've updated it so that there's more categories, there's more questions that are covered. And just know that once you click on a category, you can see the answer to any question by clicking on the question or clicking on the plus sign that you see on the far right. And I'd like to give you some information about name changes. This is something that I'm asked about quite a bit. So GED cannot assist with name changes due to marriage or divorce for testers who have already credentialed, but we can definitely assist with that if the tester has not credentialed yet. and want to let you know that we continue to support name changes under the following circumstances with formal documentation. So if it's required court ordered, such as witness protection, gender changes, if somebody was testing under an alias, obviously if the name or date of birth was incorrect in the first place, we want to assist with correcting that. The key is that when you reach out to us, you need to provide us with formal documentation that shows us how the name and or date of birth should appear on the tester's account and on their credentials. So what can you do to ensure that accounts are accurate? I alluded to this at the beginning of the presentation. If you are the person who is creating accounts on the tester's behalf, please make sure that you are carefully entering the tester's demographic information, especially their first and last name, especially their date of birth and social security number, and double check and triple check to make sure that that information is accurate before the tester begins testing. If you find any discrepancies, even for those testers who have credentialed, you should then email help@ged.com to get the name or date of birth or social security number updated. And in that email, you should state that whatever it is, give us the tester's GED ID number. Give us or tell us what their first and last name is listed at in their account, what their date of birth is listed at currently in the account, and then specifically state what it is that needs to be edited, and then attach that formal documentation. It's important to understand that this is something that cannot be taken care of over the phone. It does take some time because once it's sent to help@ged.com, we take a look at it, we review it, and then we send it over to Brad Haskamp for him to review, and then he'll let us know if he wants us to go ahead and make the update. So it is something that takes some time. Another piece of information that I think is extremely important to understand is that all of the Spanish RLA tests are hand-scored. So that means that every single response is scored by at least 6 expert scorers, sometimes up to 9, depending on if there are any scoring disagreements. And while that means that it takes longer for this test score to show up in testers' accounts, they're usually in the account within 48 hours of the student taking their test. The other thing that I wanted to call out is that font and color contrast adjustment is something that's available to all testers, not just those with approved accommodations. So any tester can adjust the font or color at any point during the exam as many times as they want, even 5 minutes prior to the end of the test. So again, remember that this is something that's available for all testers, not just those with approved accommodations. Here's a sampling of the different color contrast options that they have available to them, but actually there's more than what you see listed here. And if you're not sure how to go about assisting a tester with making that change to the color combination or how to change the text size, then you could just go to the accommodations part of our website, and then you'll see these 3 tiles here. And if you click on the download button, it gives you the instructions that testers need to follow to make those adjustments. And the last topic that I have for you deals with our website, pointing out excellent tools and resources, mainly for educators. And so you will see that we'll post the links here to the different parts of the website that I will be pointing out to you. So to get to our website, you would go to GED.com, and then you would want to go in the top right-hand corner of the screen and click on Educators and Admins. Once you do that, you will see that there's different categories listed on the left-hand side of your screen, and there are corresponding tiles in the middle of your screen as well. Within each category, there are subcategories. So for example, within the category of test administration, you see the different subcategories listed here. There is one titled Testing and Corrections. And when you click on it, you'll see this. I think on the right-hand side of the screen, these documents that are here are extremely beneficial to test administrators and educators in corrections who have access to GED Manager, because what you'll find here are how-to guides that are print ready, that provide step-by-step instructions, colored screenshots, arrows pointing to what it is you need to click on when you're performing different administrative matters within GED Manager. So for example, it walks you through how to best create a tester's account, how to best run passers reports, how to release a tester's account so that they can access it after they're released. Also, that Test Center support line document that I showed you a few slides back is available here as well. The part of the category teaching the GED test is the one that educators go to the most. And you can see the different subcategories here. Again, to access them, just click on the link on the left or the corresponding tile in the middle of the page. And here are some of the excellent resources that are available. Our Educator Handbook, which gives you an excellent overview of GED test content, recommended teaching strategies, is here. Here's the link to get to it as well. But it's extremely useful for those that are new to becoming a GED instructor. And also our practice tests, our study guides are available to you, sorry, for free. And these are available in all 4 subjects in both languages. And if you have issues, internet issues at your facility, know that there's a downloadable resources section. So you could even download the computer tutorial, which gives students an excellent idea as to what to expect when they take the test, what the test looks like, the different types of questions that are on the test. And the practice tests are, all 4 practice tests are listed here and available in both languages. I mentioned that the study guides are available to you as well at no cost. This is a really good tool for new teachers to get them familiar with the content that they need to teach. And this is what the study guides look like. All 4 of them are set up in the same format, where the first part of it is what you need to know about this subject. And then right below that, you'll see the topics listed, give you an indication as to how much time the tester has to take this test, how many sections there are, if there are any breaks, and then the format, and then you'll see the practice questions. And also on the educators and admins part of our website, you're going to see mention of our newsletter. And this is an electronic newsletter that we send out once a month, usually on the 10th of each month. And this is your best way to get the latest news and resources from GED. All we need from you is your email address. Again, it's no cost. And within this in-session newsletter, what educators find particularly helpful is we will let you know the next session that will be available in our Tuesdays for Teachers webinar series. And this is a free professional development series that's designed for educators. Often the topics that we covered are based on suggestions that we've received from educators. So for example, our next Tuesdays for Teachers will be on accommodations, but we've had many over the last 2 years, sometimes where we focus on one particular subject, sometimes we focus just on online learning. Also, there was one just on the school report. But in the in-session, you will see the name of the upcoming Tuesdays for Teachers session. It will give you a brief description of what will be covered, who the presenter will be, the date and time, and you'll see the link for you to register. And then you'll also see the link for the most previous Tuesdays for Teachers recording. But if you wanted to access the Tuesdays for Teachers recordings that we've offered over the last 2 years, then you would just go to this part of the educators and admins part of our website. This is what it looks like. You'll see there's a tile here that says webinar trainings under professional development, and just click on access webinars. And then you'll see something like this, where for every single webinar that we've had, you're able to access the recording, you're able to access the resources that the presenter has made available to the attendees, and you could even download a certificate for the ones that you watch. Here is one particular corrections webinar that we offered less than a year ago. It's specifically for math educators in a correctional setting. It was delivered by one of my colleagues. If you are a math educator, I would encourage you to take a look at this. Debbie covers a lot of different resources that would be helpful to you. And I also wanted to point out that the extended response videos that are available when students or teachers access the RLA score report are also available to you on the educators and admins part of our website. Again, this is an 8-episode series. One of our students, Alice, is the one that takes you through these 8 different videos, and each one focuses on a different aspect of the extended response. They're not long by any means, but you can access the videos here on our website at any time. If you do have issues with the internet at your facility, know that you can request the 8 videos on DVD for free from New Readers Press. All you need to do is send an email to this email address that you see listed here towards the bottom of your screen. And with that, I am going to stop and take questions. These are the links that we'll be posting for you that will take you to the different resources that I pointed out in the educators and admins part of our website. And here's my contact information. Let's take a look at the questions. So I see a question from Karen. Does anyone know if we have access to this in the DOC, or can we get it? Karen, what specifically were you referring to? I'm not sure. Karen, can you let me know what you were talking about? Or maybe you already have the answer to your question. Oh, okay. Thanks, Jody. Thanks for letting me know. Any questions? I know I covered a lot of information, and I have more information as well. It's just hard to figure out what to include in a 45-minute session, but if you're afraid to answer a question now, which you shouldn't be, just know that you can reach out to me at any time. Happy to give you more information, happy to reiterate what I've said already about the different items that I've covered. I know that for corrections, we have this dyslexia screener that we've introduced earlier this year. And that's something that I know is being looked at, you know, by the DOC. I also know that there's going to be updates to the accommodations question that you see when you're creating a student account. So for those of you on the line that create accounts on behalf of testers, as you know, there's 2 different sets of questions that you have to answer on the tester's behalf. And the last question in the first set of questions is, do you want to test with accommodations? And that is actually going to be moved. So you won't see that any longer in the first set of questions. If a tester wants to test with accommodations, you would just need to go into their account, and in the edit profile section, you'll see an accommodations section there where you can go and opt into that for them and then answer the necessary questions. Okay, I don't see. You're welcome, Michelle.